In a noisy world where people race for power, fame, and approval, there exists a quiet philosophy that whispers, the greatest victory is not out there. It's within your own mind. Stoicism doesn't promise to erase pain. It teaches you to walk through it without breaking. It doesn't teach coldness, but love guided by reason, and a life anchored in awareness. When the storms of the world rise, Stoics don't seek shelter. They raise a shield of reason, an invisible armor that guards the soul from fear and anger. And when everything fades, one truth remains. Peace belongs to those who master themselves. Since the dawn of civilization, humankind has always searched for a weapon to protect itself from the chaos of the world. Yet amid the clash of swords and the trembling of fearful hearts, people eventually realized that the most dangerous enemy was not out there. It was within their own minds. And so, Stoic philosophy arose as a steadfast shield, teaching humanity how to face adversity, emotion, and the storms that rage within. It is not a philosophy of escape, but an art of endurance, a way to remain unshaken when everything else falls apart. When the world collapses, when control slips from our hands, Stoicism teaches the one thing we can still govern: ourselves. At its core, Stoicism is about self-mastery, the power to govern our emotions, our reactions, and our perceptions. Thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all believe that no one can make us suffer unless we allow them to. The world may be cruel, people may betray us, and fate may strike harshly, but the mind, once disciplined, can become an unbreakable fortress. Epictetus, born a slave, once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, echoed the same truth in gentler words. Your peace depends on yourself. From slave to emperor, both reached the same realization. Freedom is not something given. It is something cultivated within. But Stoicism is not coldness. It does not demand that we become stone, but that we love the world through understanding, love people through compassion, and love life through awareness. A Stoic does not run from pain, but accepts it as a natural part of existence. They see failure as a lesson, loss as a test, and death as a return to nature. Love your fate, Marcus Aurelius wrote, amor fati. For only by embracing both joy and sorrow, light and shadow, can we live fully. In a world constantly changing, Stoicism reminds us that peace is not found in holding on, but in knowing when and how to let go. What makes Stoicism remarkable is its practicality. It is not confined to books, but lived out in the moments that define us. When Seneca was ordered to take his own life by Emperor Nero, he remained calm, comforting his grieving students, saying he had long been prepared for this moment. When Epictetus's leg was broken by his master, he only smiled and said, "I told you not to do that." And when Marcus Aurelius lost loved ones, faced betrayal, and endured rebellion, he did not despair. He simply wrote, "If it has happened, then it was meant to." Their serenity and suffering made them extraordinary, not because they were immune to pain, but because pain never ruled them. For the modern world, Stoicism is more than an ancient philosophy. It is a compass for an age of confusion. Amid the noise of social media, the pressure to succeed, the fear of failure and comparison, Stoicism whispers a timeless truth. You don't need to control the world, only yourself. Be silent when insulted. Stay calm when misunderstood. Stand firm when tested. Because what matters is not what happens to you, but how you choose to respond. And in the moment you remain still amid the storm, you have conquered not just the world, but yourself. Stoic philosophy never promises safety. It offers strength. It teaches that life will always be uncertain. Storms will strike without warning, and loss will arrive even when we think we're prepared. Yet instead of fearing this unpredictability, the Stoic chooses to train the mind to stand firm amid the wind. Do not wish for an easier life, they say. Wish to be stronger. This simple sentence captures the essence of Stoicism. Do not beg the world to change. Become resilient enough to face it as it is. For once, we accept that pain is inevitable. We stop fearing it. And in that moment, we are free. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now, take what's left and live it properly." He did not say this to inspire fear, but awareness. When we realize that time is limited, we stop wasting it on trivial things, anger, envy, resentment, or comparison. The Stoic does not obsess over the future or the past. Their strength lies in the present, the only place where action exists. While most people are consumed by what they cannot control, the Stoic focuses on what lies within their grasp: their thoughts, their words, their actions, and their attitude. That mastery of the moment is where unshakable power is born. And this is why, in the age of social media, where everything is measured by how others perceive us, Stoicism feels more vital than ever. We are haunted by the gaze of others, driven by illusions of fame, comparison, and the fear of being forgotten. Stoicism, like a mirror, reminds us that our worth is not in the world's applause, but in the quiet integrity we hold when no one is watching. If you can live rightly when unseen, said Epictetus, then you are truly free. Spoken 2,000 years ago, his words cut through the noise of the digital age, calling us back from the mirage of validation to the truth of inner strength. To the Stoic, every hardship is an invitation to virtue. Life's challenges are not punishments, but opportunities to grow. When insulted, it is a lesson in calm. When we lose something, it is a chance to learn detachment. When betrayed, it is the moment to practice forgiveness. No man can hurt you, Seneca wrote, unless you allow him to. Properly understood, this is not disdain for the world. It is the cultivation of inner steadiness. True strength is not measured by control over circumstances, but by our ability to define ourselves through how we face them. In that way of facing life, Stoicism reveals the quiet beauty of existence. The world will never be perfect, but it is through its imperfection that we are refined. Just as iron is hardened by fire, the soul is illuminated by suffering. The Stoic does not flee hardship. They welcome it as a teacher. They know that without adversity, we remain fragile. Without loss, we forget gratitude. Thus, every trial, great or small, is a forge for the resilient spirit. And when we can thank our pain, when we can smile in the storm, we finally understand the meaning of Stoicism, the shield that not only guards us from chaos, but reflects the light of wisdom and compassion. The Stoic does not deny emotion. They simply refuse to be ruled by it. They understand that anger, fear, envy, all are natural human reactions. But if left unchecked, they become chains that bind the soul. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Anger is like a flame that consumes the mind, and when it burns, you see nothing but yourself." He did not write this to condemn emotion, but to remind us that reason is the only lamp that can guide us through the darkness of instinct. Stoicism does not teach us to kill emotion. It teaches us to converse with it, to observe, to understand, and then to let go. For once we understand an emotion, it loses its power over us. True calm is not born from avoiding emotion, but from walking through it without being carried away. In a world overflowing with stimulation and temptation, Stoic philosophy stands as a solid foundation amid the flood of information and emotion. Each day, our minds are pulled in 1,000 directions. Negative news, endless comparisons, desires that never stop growing. But the Stoic knows it is not the world that exhausts us. It is our reaction to it. When insulted, the Stoic does not rage, for they see that others act from ignorance, not malice. When failure arrives, they do not despair, for nothing can rob a person of integrity who still lives with virtue. And when loss comes, they do not crumble, for they have long accepted the impermanence of all things. That serenity is not a gift. It is a discipline, built thought by thought, breath by breath, day by day. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "A brave man is not one who feels no fear, but one who acts in spite of it." That truth has endured for 2,000 years because fear is universal. We all fear failure, rejection, and loss. Yet Stoicism reminds us, fear doesn't fade when we run. It fades when we face it. Each time we step toward what scares us, we shrink its power. And when we recognize that fear is only a fragment of our mind, not the whole of who we are, we begin to taste freedom. This is the courage Stoicism teaches, not the grand courage of heroes, but the quiet bravery found in our daily choices. The deepest wisdom of Stoicism lies not in abstract thought, but in how it teaches us to see the world through compassion. When we stop letting emotion cloud reason, we begin to perceive the suffering of others more clearly. The Stoic is not cold toward humanity. They simply refuse to let anger blind their empathy. Marcus Aurelius advised, "When someone does wrong, remember, they are like a traveler lost in the dark. Light a lamp for them. Do not throw a stone." That is the noblest spirit of Stoicism. Strength does not come from control or dominance, but from understanding and forgiveness. Forgiveness does not make us weak. It sets us free from the poison of resentment. And in that freedom, we return to our truest nature, peaceful, kind, and wise. To the Stoic, each day is a chance to renew oneself. "Today I was angry," Marcus wrote. "Tomorrow I will be less so. Today I was afraid. Tomorrow I will be braver." This philosophy does not demand perfection, only progress. That progress may go unnoticed, uncelebrated, but it builds the quiet power of the inner life, a strength no wealth or fame can replace. And when a person learns to conquer themselves, the outer world ceases to be a threat. Then the Stoic's shield becomes more than a metaphor. It becomes a symbol of true freedom. Freedom from fear, from anger, from illusion, and from the invisible chains that life so often wraps around us. Stoicism is not merely a philosophy of living. It is the art of facing adversity. It was born in some of history's harshest ages, when humanity was crushed under the weight of war, loss, and the uncertainty of fate. Out of that darkness, Stoicism emerged as a light for the soul, whispering, "We are not here to suffer. We are here to understand." Not to flee from pain, but to learn from it. "No adversity is evil," Seneca wrote, "except that which we do not know how to use." His words cut through the mind like a blade, forcing us to confront our own reactions to hardship. For adversity does not define a person, their response to it does. And the Stoic, instead of cursing the storm, acts with the calm of one who knows that every trial carries meaning within it. That is why Marcus Aurelius, The emperor who bore the weight of the Roman Empire wrote meditations not in comfort, but in war. On cold nights, by the dim light of an oil lamp, surrounded by blood and mud, he wrote of compassion, reason, and acceptance. Outside, the clash of swords echoed. Inside, he wrestled only with his thoughts. He did not write to teach others, but to keep his own soul from collapsing. In each line, we see Stoicism alive, not loud or boastful, but steady, resilient, and inwardly luminous. He did not let chaos consume him. He turned it into a crucible for his reason. It is the most powerful image of Stoicism. A human being, small before the vastness of the universe, yet never surrendering. Stoic philosophy teaches that we become truly strong only when we accept what we cannot change. This is the hardest lesson, for human instinct is to control, to arrange, to cling, to make the world bend to our will. But life does not obey us. Plagues, wars, betrayals, losses, they come like sudden rain. The Stoic does not resist them. They open their arms and say, "So be it." They believe every event is part of nature's greater order, and that fighting it only deepens suffering. You cannot choose the waves, Epictetus said, but you can learn to ride them. This simple idea is the core of freedom, the freedom that comes not from power, but from harmony with life's flow. When we learn to accept, something miraculous happens. Peace emerges even in the heart of the storm. Acceptance is not surrender, it is understanding. When we realize everything follows its own law, we stop resenting and start learning. When we stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead ask, "What can I learn from this?" we cease to be victims, we become victors. That is the power of Stoicism, to turn pain into energy, loss into growth, chaos into wisdom. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, Seneca wrote. It is through tempests that we discover the strength of our spirit. And though the modern world may seem far removed from ancient Rome, its storms are no less real. Today we face storms of the mind, of anxiety, noise, distraction, and disconnection. The more technology we possess, the less peace we seem to have. The more we speak, the less we listen. And in this confusion, Stoicism becomes a spiritual shield, helping us create order amid chaos. It reminds us that peace does not mean the wind stops blowing. It means we learn to walk steadily through it. A person may lose everything, wealth, fame, position, but if they still possess reason, kindness, and calm, they remain free. And in that freedom, the human spirit becomes indestructible, strong as the Stoic shield itself, a weapon not against the world, but for living in harmony with it, guided by wisdom and compassion. In the journey of Stoicism, what elevates it above most philosophies is not abstract reasoning, but its practicality in every heartbeat of life. A philosophy only holds true value if it helps us face our own pain. Stoicism does not live in old manuscripts. It lives in the smallest choices of each day. In the moment we choose silence over anger, gratitude over resentment, courage over fear. That is the essence of the Stoic spirit. They do not live to escape suffering, but to rise above it. They understand that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And they choose calm, not as the absence of emotion, but as emotion illuminated by reason. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This is the key to inner freedom. When we see the world through the lens of acceptance, pain becomes lighter, and adversity transforms into a teacher. The Stoic understands that no power is greater than the ability to govern one's own reactions. They do not wish for a gentler world. They only wish for a stronger heart. They do not seek to change others. They change the way they perceive them. And that is why they become unshakable. In a world where everything can be taken from us, the one thing no one can steal is how we choose to respond to life. Seneca compared the Stoic to a pine tree standing firm amid a blizzard. Its branches may tremble, its leaves may fall, but its trunk remains steadfast, not because it avoids the wind, but because its roots run deep. Likewise, the Stoic does not seek stability outside, but cultivates it within. When those roots are made of reason, kindness, and self-control, no storm can uproot them. In our modern age, filled with distractions, social pressures, and endless noise, this lesson is more vital than ever. Not everyone can control the wind, but anyone can deepen their roots. And once the roots are deep enough, the wind no longer frightens you. The subtle beauty of Stoicism lies in how it dissolves philosophy into daily life. When Marcus Aurelius lost someone he loved, he did not deny his grief. Instead, he wrote, "I mourn because I am human, but I am grateful because I once had them." In that single sentence, he distilled the philosophy of gratitude, seeing light even within loss. The Stoic does not force a smile through tragedy. They look deeper and find meaning in it. Every loss teaches us the value of what remains. Every wound trains us in patience. Each hardship is a test for the soul, and the Stoic is the one who gives thanks for the chance to be tested, no matter how hard the exam may be. Thus, Stoicism is not a philosophy of avoidance, but of engagement with life through awareness and courage. It does not turn people into cold machines, but into whole beings, strong yet compassionate, firm yet understanding. Once we grasp this spirit, we see that Stoicism does not ask us to withdraw from the world, but to live within it without losing ourselves. Amid chaos, it helps us stand tall. Amid loss, it teaches gratitude. Amid pain, it reveals purpose. And that is the supreme power of the Stoic shield, not merely to defend against darkness, but to illuminate the path ahead, turning even the harshest life into one rich with meaning, humanity, and quiet strength. If you look deeply into Stoicism, you'll notice what seems like a paradox. It teaches acceptance of fate, yet it never advocates resignation. On the contrary, by recognizing that certain things lie beyond our control, the Stoic learns to focus all strength on what truly can be changed. Epictetus divided life into two categories: what depends on us and what does not. The first includes our actions, choices, thoughts, and attitudes. The second, things like weather, illness, reputation, and death. The Stoic regards this boundary as the sacred line of freedom. When we care only for what is ours to shape, the mind becomes spacious and steady. But when we try to control what cannot be controlled, we bind ourselves with the ropes of frustration. This is one of Stoicism's most practical lessons, and one the modern world needs more than ever. We spend so much time resenting what we can't change: traffic jams, bad weather, other people's behavior, online criticism, the past itself. Each time we do, we waste a fragment of our precious energy. The Stoic doesn't. They ask, is this within my control? If yes, they act. If no, they let go. Because they understand, it is not the world that torments us, but our insistence that the world obey our will. The moment we release that illusion, we stop being slaves to emotion. We become free. Marcus Aurelius compared life to a river. The current doesn't flow the way we wish, but we can choose how to swim. If we resist, we drown in exhaustion. If we learn to move with it, pushing at the right moments, we go farther with less struggle. That is how the Stoic lives, not by fighting what cannot be changed, but by using wisdom to adapt, adjust, and transform adversity into momentum. When they lose, they practice gratitude. When they fail, they learn perseverance. When misunderstood, they cultivate forgiveness. That is why Stoics are never weak. They simply understand life's laws so deeply that fear loses its grip on them. Their view of fate is also unique. To the Stoic, destiny is not a prison, but a companion. If life is a play, fate is the director, and we are the actors. We cannot choose our role, but we can choose how well to perform it. A true Stoic does not ask, "Why me?" but "How can I play this role with honor?" And in that question, they find dignity. Dignity doesn't come from controlling the stage. It comes from performing with integrity, even when the lights go out. That attitude is what has allowed Stoicism to endure for millennia, shining as a lamp for all who feel lost in a restless, uncertain world. Modern life teaches us to chase power, fame, and control. Stoicism teaches the opposite: to let go in order to be free. Not letting go out of weakness, but out of strength. The strength to discern what's worth holding and what must be released. True letting go is never loss. It is simply returning burdens that were never ours to carry. When we release, we don't lose power. We discover it. When we stop trying to control everything, we begin to master ourselves. And in that moment, we become invincible. Not because the world stops testing us, but because we have learned to stand firm within it, wearing the calm smile of one who knows. The Stoic shield not only protects us from chaos, it reflects the image of a soul forged in the light of awareness and peace. One of the qualities that has allowed Stoic philosophy to endure for over 2,000 years is its unshakable faith in the power of reason. To the Stoics, reason is not merely a tool for thought. It is the light that guides the soul. When emotions surge, when the world falls into chaos, reason is the lantern that shows the way out. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is its own fortress. Only if you open the gates can the enemy enter." He meant that nothing external can truly harm us unless we allow it to. Harsh words, failure, betrayal, all are but sounds beyond the wall. That wall is reason, built from understanding, discipline, and compassion. The Stoic does not live to avoid pain. They train so that pain cannot destroy them. But to cultivate reason does not mean to become less human. On the contrary, Stoicism teaches that emotion can only be mastered when we dare to face it. The Stoic does not deny anger, fear, or sadness. They observe them as a watchman on the wall, seeing them pass without running away or judging. When an emotion is observed with awareness, it loses its power over us. Seneca once said, "Anger begins when reason leaves and ends when reason returns." Every moment we stay calm when provoked, we win a silent but profound battle within ourselves. And that, ultimately, is the greatest victory Stoicism seeks, the victory over the self. The Stoic also does not view themselves as saints. They know perfection is impossible, and that every human being is bound by limits. Marcus Aurelius, a ruler, a philosopher, a symbol of wisdom, wrote, "Each morning, remind yourself, today, You will meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful. But they cannot harm you unless you let them make you lose your kindness. He did not wish for the world to be gentler. He wished not to become cruel because of it. This is Stoicism at its highest form. Not the mastery of others, but the mastery of one's own reactions. In our modern world, where anger spreads faster than reflection and words cut deeper than swords, his message still echoes. Control what you can, and let nature decide the rest. Stoicism also urges us to face death with calm acceptance, not out of despair, but out of clarity. It teaches that only when we accept the limits of life can we truly live. Seneca wrote, "He who fears death will never live." The Stoic does not fear loss, for they know all things are temporary. Our bodies, possessions, reputation, even the memory of us in others' minds. Yet this realization does not darken life, it brightens it. Because when we know the morning might be our last, we love more freely, forgive more easily, and live more deeply. Death, in Stoic thought, is not an ending, but a reminder to live so that when the time comes, we have nothing left to regret. And perhaps the greatest gift Stoicism has given humanity is the ability to turn philosophy into practice and wisdom into compassion. It does not teach withdrawal from life, but right action within it. The Stoic does not hide in ivory towers. They enter battlefields, govern empires, teach, love, fail, and keep going. Yet wherever they go, they carry a flame that never fades, the flame of reason and humanity. That is what makes Stoicism timeless. The world may change, but the human heart will always need a shield against fear, loss, and chaos. And that shield, though ancient and weathered, still gleams brightly in the hands of all who are learning how to stand firm in the storm. What makes Stoicism truly great is not the perfection of its philosophy, but its universality, its ability to reach every layer of human life. From a slave like Epictetus to an emperor like Marcus Aurelius, they all shared the same journey, learning how to live rightly in a world that is rarely right. Stoicism is not a philosophy reserved for scholars. It belongs to anyone who has realized that life is never easy. A weary laborer, a single mother, a soldier on the battlefield, or someone quietly wrestling with their own anxiety, all can find peace within Stoicism. For it requires no wealth, no status, only the courage to look inward. And in today's world of endless choices and distractions, Stoicism invites us to return to what truly matters, what is within our control and what is not. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." The line is simple, yet it contains a truth the modern world has largely forgotten. We become what we think about most. If we dwell on fear, we live in fear. If we nurture resentment, we are consumed by darkness. But if we cultivate gratitude, we begin to see the world in light. Stoicism teaches us to tend to the garden of the mind, to pull out the weeds of anger, plant seeds of kindness, and water them with understanding. Every thought we choose with care becomes a brick in the fortress of inner peace. And once we learn to defend the mind, the chaos outside can no longer destroy us. The Stoic does not seek joy in possessions, for they understand that material things offer only temporary comfort. Seneca wrote, "Wealth does not make a man happy, it only makes him anxious about losing it." True happiness, in the Stoic view, lies in living according to reason and virtue. A man may sleep on a golden bed and still be restless, while another may rest on bare earth and feel at peace. Peace does not come from circumstances, but from a mind that knows sufficiency. And to know sufficiency does not mean to give up. It means to understand that nothing external can fill an inner emptiness that we have not already filled ourselves. When we grasp this, we stop racing others and begin the quiet journey back to our true selves, where everything we need to be content has always been waiting. Stoicism also teaches gratitude, a soft but powerful force capable of healing every wound. The Stoic does not wait for abundance to be grateful. They practice gratitude even in scarcity. Marcus Aurelius, amid the horrors of war, still wrote, "I thank the gods for giving me eyes to see, a mind to understand, and a heart to love." That was not naivete, but enlightenment, the understanding that when we appreciate the small, the great dissatisfactions disappear. Gratitude frees us from the prison of what we lack and liberates us into the abundance of what we already have. In a world obsessed with acquisition, Stoicism reminds us that the real miracle is not in gaining more, but in seeing the beauty in what is already here. Yet perhaps the most profound gift Stoicism offers humanity is its ability to turn pain into the art of growth. The Stoic does not flee from suffering. They look it in the eye, as one looks into a mirror. Every wound becomes a question. What can I learn from this? And within that question, pain begins to dissolve, transforming into light. Pain, rightly understood, ceases to be an enemy and becomes a teacher. It teaches patience, humility, compassion. When we stop resenting life for testing us and instead thank it for strengthening us, we finally touch the essence of Stoicism. And at that moment, all the chaos around us grows small, for we have found the one shield that cannot be broken: a peaceful mind standing firm amid the storms of life. When we look deeply into Stoic thought, we see that its essence does not lie in teaching people to become rigid, but in helping them to become gracefully resilient, soft like water, steadfast like stone. Water can slip through cracks, flow around great boulders, and still reach the sea. The Stoic lives the same way. They do not fight life with blind resistance, but move through it with wise adaptability. When the wind shifts, they adjust the sails. When the path is blocked, they find another way. When they lose something, they use it as an opportunity to practice letting go. It is this flexibility that keeps them unbroken. Seneca once said, "A rigid soul is easily shattered, but the soul that can bend will endure forever." That balance, strength with suppleness, is what makes Stoicism not merely a philosophy of survival, but a philosophy of depth and grace. Stoicism also teaches that true strength does not come from power, but from the ability to preserve one's humanity in all circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of Rome, never ceased to remind himself, "Remember that you are but a human being, a small part of the vast universe." Those words did not weaken him. They made him humble. In an age where ambition, fame, and validation often blind people, this lesson is more precious than ever. For power without compassion becomes a danger. To the Stoic, humility is not weakness. It is awareness. When we realize we are but dust in the cosmos, we stop trying to dominate the world and begin to live in harmony with it. And in that humility, we do not become smaller, we expand, as vast as the universe itself. Among Stoicism's deepest values is compassion. Many misunderstand the philosophy as one of detachment, but in truth, it teaches a love that is free from the chains of emotional chaos. The Stoic loves with reason, because love is the natural order of human existence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Human beings are made for cooperation, like hands working together. To harm another is to harm yourself." He was not speaking in abstract theory, but from profound understanding of our shared humanity. The Stoic does not love in expectation of return. They love because only kindness can warm a cold world. And in our divided age, that message is perhaps what we need most. Not the strength to conquer, but the compassion to understand. Stoicism also emphasizes preparation, a concept modern people often overlook. The Stoics believed one cannot live peacefully without being mentally prepared for misfortune. Seneca advised his students to begin each morning imagining the day's possible trials, insults, betrayal, loss, not to be pessimistic, but to be ready. When misfortune comes, you suffer only once, he said. But if you fear it beforehand, you suffer twice, once in anxiety and once in reality. Applied wisely, this principle creates an uncommon steadiness. A Stoic does not fear the future because they have already seen it, understood it, and accepted it. When you are prepared for the worst, whether it comes or not, your mind remains serene. In our age of constant motion, where stillness feels like failure, Stoicism teaches the art of silence. It reminds us that to hear the voice of reason, we must first quiet the noise of the world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Take time to be alone, for in solitude the soul becomes clear." Stillness is not withdrawal, it is return. A return to what truly matters, to the inner voice we've lost amid the crowd's noise. When a person can sit in silence without feeling empty, they have touched true freedom. And in that freedom, they no longer need weapons to face life's chaos. For the Stoic shield, reason, compassion, and stillness is enough to help them stand firm against every storm. As the modern world accelerates, driven by comparison, ambition, and the fear of missing out, Stoic philosophy returns like a medicine for the weary soul. It reminds us that we do not need to run faster than others. We only need to walk in the right direction. The Stoic does not compare their journey to anyone else's, for they know each person is their own river, some rapid, some winding, but all flowing toward the same sea. They do not measure their worth by others' success, but by their own integrity. Marcus Aurelius once asked, "If you are doing the right thing, why do you need praise?" For the Stoic, the greatest reward for doing what is right is inner peace. No stage, no audience, only a calm heart that knows it is living a life worth living. The modern age traps us in the illusion of control. We believe that with enough technology, planning, and money, we can command life itself. Yet Stoicism warns that the moment we believe we control everything is often when we lose ourselves the most. Seneca wrote, "No one is more enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free." Dependence on external things, power, attention, technology, makes us prisoners of our desires. The Stoic learns to see their limits, to resist being ruled by fear, and to live simply amid complexity. They do not reject progress, but they protect their spirit from being swept away by the world's velocity. In a society obsessed with speed, the Stoic chooses steadiness. They walk slowly, but every step is deliberate. A profound aspect of Stoicism is its ability to turn responsibility into freedom. To most people, responsibility feels like a burden. To the Stoic, it is the privilege of action. Marcus Aurelius did not see the Roman throne as a luxury, but as a duty to serve. He wrote, "Each morning, remind yourself, you have risen to perform the work of a human being." It is a call to live not for comfort, but for contribution. The Stoic finds freedom not in indulgence, but in right action. They know that only when we accept responsibility for our own lives do we stop being dependent on others. And when we act with a spirit of service, even the smallest task, sweeping a floor, teaching a child, fighting a battle, writing a book, becomes part of a greater mission, to live in harmony with our human nature. Stoicism never promises an easy life. It teaches us how to endure a hard one without breaking. Marcus Aurelius lost his wife, his children, faced rebellion and plague, yet he never lost faith in goodness. He did not pray for life to be gentler, but for his heart to be stronger. That is the Stoic spirit, not wishing for fewer hardships, but for greater courage. In today's world, where people often sigh that everything is too hard, Stoicism reminds us that hardship is not an enemy. It is the forge of the soul. Only a spirit tested by struggle becomes as clear and sharp as a blade tempered in fire. Like steel shaped by heat, the Stoic glows with quiet strength, born of suffering. Ultimately, what makes Stoicism immortal is not its books, but how it breathes through every moment of life. It demands no rituals, no temples, only a heart that seeks virtue and a mind that seeks clarity. The Stoic does not look for heaven in some distant realm. They find it in the present moment, when they act rightly, think rightly, and treat the world with kindness. That is the heaven of peace. And in a world shaken by fear, competition, and uncertainty, this is the light that guides the way. For the Stoic shield does more than guard against chaos. It reflects a simple but eternal truth. Happiness is not found in owning the world, but in refusing to let the world own you. At its core, Stoic philosophy does not teach us to escape the world. It teaches us how to live within it, with a different spirit, calm, lucid, and untouched by chaos. A Stoic can walk through the marketplace, stand amid noise, debate, and disorder, yet keep their mind still, like a lake untouched by the storm above it. They are not swayed by praise or blame, because they understand that both are only fleeting reflections of others, not truths about themselves. Epictetus once said, "When someone insults you, remember, they are describing their world, not yours." That sentence holds the foundation of inner freedom, the very thing modern people have sacrificed for work, fame, and false peace. The Stoic does not seek freedom by cutting external ties, but by breaking the invisible chains within their own mind. Another profound lesson of Stoicism lies in its deep acceptance of nature's order. Modern humans often seek to dominate nature, to control it, only to become victims of their own ambition. The Stoic understands that humanity does not stand above nature. We are a part of it. Marcus Aurelius compared life to a woven tapestry, where each thread is a living being, and to pull one thread is to unravel the whole. From this vision, he lived with reverence toward the universe's order, trusting that everything happens for a reason, even when we cannot yet see it. With that understanding, the Stoic no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this trying to teach me?" This shift allows them to find peace even in hardship, to see in every trial a lesson, and in every loss, the quiet arrangement of a greater design. Stoics also recognize human limits and honor them. They do not strive to know everything, to always be right, or to win approval. While most of the world races to prove who is smarter or louder, the Stoic seeks only to be truer to themselves. They know when to be silent instead of reactive, when to listen instead of argue. And that true wisdom comes not from convincing others, but from understanding oneself. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is not he who has much, but he who needs little." Similarly, the wise thinker is not the one who speaks most, but the one who knows when silence holds more truth. In that silence, they find wisdom, and in that wisdom, they find peace. Stoicism is not just a philosophy of reason, it is also a philosophy of compassion. This was evident in how Marcus Aurelius ruled. Amid wars and political conspiracies, he remained merciful and kind. He once wrote, "If you can do good for someone, do it now. Life is short, do not delay." These are not merely philosophical words. They are a call to empathy in a world that has grown cold. The Stoic does not teach us to be indifferent to the suffering of others. It teaches us to love wisely, to care without being consumed. For compassion without wisdom can make us victims, but compassion guided by reason becomes a healing force for others and for ourselves. And perhaps what makes Stoicism immortal is precisely its harmony between intellect and love. Two forces often seen as opposites, yet deeply intertwined. Intellect helps us understand. Love helps us forgive. Together, they allow us to stand strong in the storm without turning to stone, to feel pain without drowning in it. This is the highest state of the Stoic soul, not ruled by emotion, yet not devoid of it. A spirit that is both steady and gentle, strong and kind. In an age where people often swing between extremes, too cold or too fragile, Stoicism offers the middle path, the art of balance. For only in balance can a person be truly free, not bound by the world and yet never apart from it. In today's world, where people seem trapped in the race for fame, wealth, and validation, Stoic philosophy returns like a quiet breeze, reminding us that happiness is not a destination, but a way of walking. The Stoic does not ask, "What will I achieve?" but "Who will I become?" They understand that true worth is not measured by what we own, but by the quality of our soul in the face of life's trials. A person may lose everything, but if they keep their integrity and calm, they remain victorious. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You may take away my possessions, but you cannot take away my mind." It is the declaration of someone who knows that true freedom does not come from material things, but from the independence of the spirit, something no one can ever steal. Stoicism also teaches the art of simplicity. Seneca once said, "Learn to enjoy less, so you never feel deprived." This idea stands in direct contrast to the modern rhythm of life, where people believe that the more they have, the happier they'll be. In truth, the more we chase desire, the further we drift from peace. The Stoic lives minimally, not because they lack wealth, but because they understand that everything we possess also possesses a part of us. They choose lightness over accumulation. In a small room, they still find happiness, for their mind is vast. In a humble meal, they still find gratitude, for they are aware of being alive. Amid endless temptations, they keep their mind uncluttered, and within that emptiness, they discover freedom, the kind that those full of possessions can never reach. Another profound aspect of Stoicism is what might be called active acceptance, a mindset not of surrender, but of harmony with reality. When misfortune strikes, the Stoic does not ask why, but what can I do now? They believe every event is neutral. It is our perception that gives it color. Epictetus told his students, "No one can harm you unless you allow it." When we understand that, we hold humanity's greatest power, the power to choose our response. A Stoic can stand in the ruins of failure and remain unbroken, for they know that loss does not define them. What defines them is how they rise. They do not expect life to be fair, but they always act fairly. They do not wait for the world to change. They change themselves so they cannot be defeated. Marcus Aurelius once compared life to a play, with each of us as actors upon its stage. We cannot choose our role, but we can choose how we perform it. If our role is short, we should play each line fully. If our role is painful, we should play it bravely. Meaning does not lie in the length of the performance, but in the truth within it. The Stoic understands that we cannot control our fate, but we can control our dignity. And that dignity is what remains when all else falls apart. In an age dominated by social media, fame, and judgment, this lesson grows ever more vital. Live not to be seen, but to be worth seeing. When we live honestly, even unseen, the soul still shines. Stoicism never promises escape from pain. It teaches us how to walk through it without losing ourselves. It teaches that pain is a test, and only the courageous soul dares to face it directly. The Stoic does not seek to erase emotion, but to master it, turning it from an enemy into an ally. When anger rises, they pause. When grief comes, they breathe. When fear appears, they smile. For they know emotion itself is not evil. It becomes destructive only when it controls us. And when we learn to stand in the storm without being carried away, that is when we become truly free. Freedom is not the absence of chains. It is the moment those chains no longer make us tremble. That is the Stoic spirit, brave, lucid, and unbreakably calm. If we look deeper, we will see that Stoicism is not a philosophy of withdrawal. It is a philosophy of deliberate action. A Stoic does not sit idly waiting for fate. They act, but act with awareness, not impulse, not under the tyranny of emotion. They understand that every small act in life is a chance to practice reason. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Do not talk about philosophy, embody it." He did not need grand speeches. He lived Stoicism through leadership, compassion, and endurance. When an emperor writes not to instruct others, but to remind himself to remain upright, we understand that Stoicism does not live in books. It lives in every choice we make each day. And if each person lived this way, acting rightly, speaking truthfully, thinking clearly, the world would become infinitely lighter. One of the most subtle teachings of Stoicism is how it helps us overcome fear, especially the fear of loss. Modern humans fear many things: failure, obscurity, loss of reputation, not being enough. But the Stoic knows that everything we possess is only lent to us. Seneca compared life to a banquet. We arrive, we enjoy, and when the host signals that it is time to leave, we rise without complaint. They know that acceptance is the highest form of freedom. When we no longer fear losing, we can finally love completely. When we no longer fear death, we can truly live. And when we no longer fear change, we find the courage to move forward. The Stoic does not cling to the past, nor worry about the future. They live wholly in the present, for it is the only thing that truly exists. Stoicism is also a philosophy of self-discipline. No one is born strong. Strength is the result of training and will. Marcus Aurelius likened the human mind to a muscle. Each challenge we face is another repetition in the gym of life. The more we train, the stronger we become. A Stoic does not avoid trials. They seek them because they know that only adversity reveals who we are. When insulted, they learn patience. When they fail, they learn humility. When they suffer, they learn compassion. Without pain, the soul remains soft. Without hardship, we never know our own power. That is why the Stoic cultivates gratitude, not only for joy, but for pain, because they understand that everything arrives for a reason. The Stoic is also profoundly realistic in how they view human relationships. They do not expect everyone to be good. nor are they crushed when others fail them. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Today I will meet people who are selfish, arrogant, and ignorant, but I will not hate them, for they act out of misunderstanding." This is more than tolerance. It is wisdom. When we understand that people act according to the limits of their awareness, anger fades. Instead of hatred, we find empathy. Instead of resentment, we find opportunities to practice kindness. And that is the true power of Stoicism, not the power to control others, but the power to remain peaceful when faced with others. For in life, we cannot change the wind, but we can learn to adjust our sails. Above all, Stoicism teaches us to become guides, not complainers. The modern world is full of people waiting for change, but few who dare to start it. The Stoic understands that changing the world begins with changing oneself. When we live rationally, others learn calm. When we live kindly, others learn compassion. When we live courageously, others learn faith. For this philosophy spreads not through words, but through example. And in every small, righteous act lies a brick in the foundation of a more humane world. Stoicism is not a relic of the past. It is a lantern for the present, a light that never fades, guiding all who seek themselves amid the darkness of our age. What makes Stoicism remarkable is not merely its philosophy of calm, but how it elevates courage into the central virtue of the human soul. To the Stoic, courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting rightly despite fear. Seneca wrote, "The brave man is not he who feels no fear, but he who overcomes it." Courage, in Stoicism, is not found on the battlefield or in grand gestures of heroism, but in the smallest moral acts, speaking truth when all are silent, standing firm when all retreat, holding integrity when tempted by corruption. Courage is choosing to remain kind in a world that often is not. For only when we cease to be ruled by fear do we become truly free. And that freedom from fear, anger, and greed, is the greatest victory any person can achieve. The Stoic understands that life will never stop testing us. The point is not to avoid those tests, but to prepare for them. Each morning, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Today I shall meet the deceitful, the ungrateful, the arrogant, yet they cannot harm me, for I know their nature." This was no complaint, but a ritual of the spirit. He armored his mind for hardship, so that when it arrived, he met it calmly. This is a lesson modern people often forget. Mental preparation is the foundation of peace. When we expect that things can go wrong, we do not crumble when they do. And when we stop believing that life owes us comfort, we start to feel gratitude for every quiet moment it offers. Another defining quality of the Stoic is perseverance. They understand that glory does not come from speed, but from endurance. Epictetus likened life to a marathon, not about who explodes off the starting line, but who still has strength at the end. The Stoic does not crave instant results. They trust in steady, honest effort. When they fail, they do not despair. When they succeed, they do not boast. They simply continue to do what is right. In today's world, obsessed with haste and success, this lesson is priceless. For perseverance, slow, steady, and unyielding, is the strongest weapon we have against chaos. The Stoic also knows that no one can imprison the soul unless we allow it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You may live amid the noise of Rome, yet your mind can remain as still as that of a monk." True stillness, then, does not come from the world around us, but from within. In our age of constant noise and endless reaction, Humanity has forgotten the art of silence. We speak too much, react too fast, and think too little. The Stoic does the opposite. They speak less, think deeply, and respond slowly. For every word and act is an arrow. Once released, it cannot be recalled. Only when we pause before reacting do we live with intention. That silence is not avoidance. It is strength, the quiet strength of one who masters himself. Finally, Stoicism teaches the harmony between man and the universe. It holds that every soul is part of a vast and ordered whole, a perfect design of which we see only a fragment. Marcus Aurelius called it logos, the universal reason, the current of wisdom and goodness that runs through all creation. When one lives in harmony with logos, one no longer resists life, but flows with it, transforms with it, accepts it as it is. This is the highest state the Stoic aspires to, unity with the cosmos. When we stop asking why things happen and begin to live fully with what happens, we attain a serenity no storm can shatter. In that moment, we are no longer small beings tossed by fate. We become co-creators with the universe itself, walking through chaos with the calm of one who has found peace within. Unlike many philosophies that teach mankind to conquer the world, Stoicism teaches us to conquer ourselves. And that is the hardest victory of all. A nation may rebuild after war. An empire may rise again after ruin. But when a person loses themselves, there is no map back home. The Stoic understands that the real enemies do not live outside of us, but within: fear, anger, greed, and weakness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you are angry, the harm done to you is less than the harm you do to yourself by giving in to anger. What lies outside can wound the body. What lies within can destroy the soul." Thus, Stoicism teaches humanity its highest art, the art of self-control. When we can govern our thoughts, emotions, and actions, the world no longer governs us. Then, even in the heart of the storm, we remain at the helm of our own ship. The Stoic never denies emotion. They simply know it must be guided by reason. In anger, they pause instead of reacting. In fear, they face it instead of fleeing. In loss, they give thanks instead of lamenting. They do not force themselves to become emotionless machines. They simply choose not to let blind emotion destroy their judgment. Seneca once said, "Nothing is more noble than keeping one's composure when everyone else is losing theirs." That is not advice. It is a way of life. In an age of outrage and impulsive reactions, this spirit is rarer and more valuable than ever. For while the world rushes to act on emotion, the Stoic moves slowly, observes carefully, and acts with clarity. And in that stillness, they become stronger than anyone around them. Another vital lesson Stoicism offers is learning to release control over outcomes. People often suffer not because of their actions, but because of their expectations. When results fail, they despair. When unrecognized, they rage. But the Stoic understands that outcomes are never ours to command. Only our efforts are. Epictetus taught, "Your duty is not to win, but to play your part well." In other words, do the right thing and leave the rest to fate. When we act rightly because it is right, not for reward, we achieve true freedom. And paradoxically, it is often when we stop clinging to results that the best results arrive. The universe, it seems, favors those who live with sincerity, humility, and constancy. Stoicism also transforms our relationship with time. The Stoic does not live in the past. nor obsess over the future. They live fully in the present, as if it were all that exists. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The life of a man is but a moment. Live it well." The Stoic knows that regret and worry are illusions. The past cannot be changed. The future has not yet come. Only the present is real. And if we live rightly in each moment, there is nothing to fear from what comes next. For if tomorrow never arrives, we can still smile, because we lived well today. In our modern world, consumed by speed, schedules, and outcomes, this is the reminder we need most. Stop, breathe, and live. Not merely exist, but live with awareness, gratitude, and full presence in every second we are given. Ultimately, the beauty of Stoicism lies in how it turns philosophy into daily practice. The Stoic does not study merely to know, but to live differently. Each morning they ask, "What can I do better today than yesterday?" Each night they ask, "Did I live rightly?" These simple questions move them forward, day by day, without supervision, without reward. They know greatness is not born of grand gestures, but of countless small, correct choices. Thus, Stoicism does not turn people into distant philosophers, but into ordinary humans, living extraordinarily. In a world full of chaos, if even one person lives with reason, compassion, and courage, the world becomes a little better. And that is the eternal message Stoicism leaves for humankind. Stoicism is not a static doctrine buried in the past. It is a flame still burning in the hearts of those who struggle to find meaning amid life's chaos. Its strength lies in this: it does not promise to erase pain, but helps us walk through pain without losing ourselves. When Marcus Aurelius faced profound loss, the deaths of his wife, his children, and countless others during the plague, he did not curse fate or rail against the heavens. Instead, he wrote, "Everything that happens is natural. Accept it as part of the order." This was not cold detachment, but deep understanding that suffering is not an anomaly, but an inseparable part of the human journey. The Stoic does not pray for a gentler world. They pray for a heart wide enough to love even the most difficult truths life brings. Stoicism teaches something the modern world has forgotten: that suffering is not the enemy, but the teacher. Every adversity is an opportunity to strengthen the soul. Seneca once said, "There is no favorable wind for the ship that does not know where it is going." Life's tempests do not come to destroy us, but to reveal who we are. The Stoic looks at pain as a blacksmith looks at fire, not with fear, but with gratitude, for it tempers the spirit. When one sees every challenge as a lesson, they can no longer be defeated, no matter how many times they fall. And when we can be grateful even for our suffering, happiness becomes untouchable, because it no longer depends on circumstance, but rises from within, from the most unshakable part of the soul. A unique aspect of Stoicism lies in its attitude toward death, something most people fear, avoid, or deny. To the Stoic, death is not an end, but a natural part of life's cycle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Death should not frighten you, for it is only the dissolution of what was never meant to last." When we see death as law, we begin to live differently. We cherish every moment, love more deeply, forgive more easily, because we know everything will eventually pass. The fear of loss dissolves, replaced by gratitude. And in that gratitude, we learn to truly live, not to delay, not to rage, not to resent life. When we grasp that our time is finite, we stop wasting it on pettiness. That is the ultimate freedom Stoicism gives us. freedom from the final fear of death itself. The Stoic does not live apart from the world. They love life, love people, and serve society through their own example. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, yet also a servant. Epictetus was a slave, yet also a teacher of freedom. Seneca was a statesman, yet also a writer teaching compassion. They did not preach morality from afar. They lived it amid labor, failure, and renewal. They understood that philosophy has value only when it is lived, not merely spoken. And this union of wisdom and action is what makes Stoicism a philosophy for real people. Not perfect ones, but those striving to live rightly in an imperfect world. In our turbulent age, where technology connects us but leaves us lonely, where the world spins faster than our minds can follow, Stoicism is not obsolete. It is the anchor for drifting souls. For though time has changed, human fears, desires, and wounds remain the same as 2,000 years ago. Stoicism reminds us that no matter the century, true strength still lies in self-mastery. When we learn to listen instead of react, to understand instead of judge, to accept instead of complain, we are living stoically. And in those small daily acts, the world quietly becomes better. Not because it changes, but because we do. Stoicism is not merely a philosophy of the individual, but a philosophy of community, of humanity bound by a shared destiny. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is good for the hive is good for the bee." He meant that no human being can truly exist apart from the whole. Personal happiness can only be sustained when it is woven into the happiness of others. The Stoic lives for themselves, but not selfishly. They care for their own soul as a way of caring for the world. When they live rightly, speak truthfully, and act kindly, they do not just serve themselves, but serve humanity. In a world fracturing under the weight of division, Stoicism is a call to return to the cooperative spirit that once allowed humankind to survive the darkness of ages past. The Stoic understands that no one can find peace while others are in pain. Compassion, therefore, is not merely a virtue, it is a responsibility. The greatness of Stoicism lies in how it unites compassion and reason. The Stoic heart is not cold. It is illuminated by understanding. They do not pity. They empathize. They do not help others to be praised. They do it because it is natural to an awakened soul. Seneca once said, "No man can be truly rich if his neighbors are poor." For in Stoicism, kindness is not charity, it is awareness that we all belong to the same whole. When one person suffers, we all suffer. When one person is happy, the world grows lighter. And so, the Stoic lives not to chase personal ambition, but to fulfill their part in the greater design. The duty to live justly, be useful, and add no further suffering to others. Another enduring lesson of Stoicism is the steadfastness of moral integrity, that small light we must keep burning even when surrounded by darkness. Marcus Aurelius faced rebellion, betrayal, and bloody wars, yet he never allowed himself to become like the enemies he fought. He knew that victory won by losing one's humanity is no victory at all. The Stoic does not prove strength through violence, but through constancy, and integrity to them is the most precious treasure. In an age where people trade conviction for comfort and honesty for approval, this lesson becomes a moral compass. No one can take away your dignity unless you give it up yourself. To remain pure amid the storm of the world is the highest form of triumph. Stoicism also teaches that true happiness is not excitement, but peace. Excitement burns like fire, bright but brief. Peace shines like sunlight, steady, warm, and life-giving. The Stoic finds joy in simple things: a deep breath, a sunrise, a kind word. They do not need the world to change for them to be content. They change their perception so the world becomes lovable again. Epictetus taught, "If you wish to be free, do not wish for events to happen as you want, but wish to want them as they happen." This is not an invitation to passivity, but to maturity. When we stop demanding life to be easy, we become strong. When we stop waiting for luck, we begin to act. And when we stop fearing failure, we rediscover joy in the journey itself. Perhaps the most profound gift of Stoicism is its vision of freedom. Not political or material freedom, but spiritual freedom. A slave like Epictetus could be freer than a king because his mind was unchained from fear and desire. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is the pinnacle of Stoic wisdom, the absolute freedom of the soul. In our modern world, people believe themselves free, yet they are bound by habits, opinions, and the invisible chains of social expectation. Stoicism reminds us that true freedom does not lie in the ability to do anything, but in the power to refrain from what enslaves us. When we are no longer driven by craving, anger, or validation, when we can simply be, then we are free. And that freedom cannot be taken, for it lives in the only place no one can reach, within the soul itself. Stoicism is not a philosophy meant only for times of peace and prosperity. It is a compass for the human spirit when the world collapses around it. It was the light Marcus Aurelius carried as the Roman Empire fell into war, the small flame Epictetus guarded, though he lived his entire life in bondage. The Stoic does not lose themselves when the world loses balance, for they understand that true stability does not come from without, but from within. When the mind stands firm, even amidst storms, one can still walk in the quiet clarity of reason. That is why the Stoics were not merely teachers of philosophy, they were living examples of it. Every step, every breath, every choice was a testament to the power of an unbroken spirit. What makes Stoicism timeless is that it speaks to what never changes, the nature of the human heart. 2,000 years ago, people feared, envied, raged, and suffered, and today, we still do. That is precisely why the philosophy endures. It does not seek to change the world, but to change how we see it. It does not promise to erase pain, but teaches us how to walk through it with composure. In this modern age, where technology convinces us we are stronger than ever, Stoicism reminds us that we are just as fragile as before, only now armed with more tools to avoid our fears. And for that very reason, we need Stoicism more than ever, to face instead of flee, to understand instead of resent, to act instead of complain. Only then can we truly grow. One of the most powerful images in Stoicism is the shield of reason. The Stoic does not carry a sword to strike back. They carry a shield to protect the mind from the arrows of the world. Every insult, every wound, every failure, if not guarded by reason, can pierce the soul. But when reason is strong, those arrows break before reaching the heart. It is a symbol of inner strength, an invisible weapon that allows one to walk through every storm while still holding on to compassion. The Stoic does not strive to appear unyielding. They simply cannot be broken, for within them, everything is already in its rightful place. They need no validation, no applause, because they already understand themselves. Stoicism also reminds us of the harmony between action and stillness. Many people choose one or the other, either too busy to think or too contemplative to act. But the Stoic finds strength in balance. They act with reason, yet pause to reflect. They understand that action is not haste, and stillness is not surrender. In a noisy world, they retreat inward, listening to the voice of the soul. And when they step back out, they act with awareness, untouched by the whirlwind of ambition. Seneca once wrote, "Set aside time for yourself, as you would for a cherished friend." For only when we learn to live with ourselves can we truly live with others. Thus, the Stoic is never lonely, for they have befriended the most faithful companion of all, their own inner self. Ultimately, Stoicism is a philosophy of hope, not a loud or naive optimism, but a quiet faith in humanity's potential to become better, stronger, freer. It is a hope born of understanding, not illusion. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Even if the world is chaos, you can still live with integrity," he was not writing only for himself, but for all humankind. That truth holds as firm today as it did 2 millennia ago. We cannot command the storm, but we can keep the fire within from going out. And that fire, small but steady, has guided, and will continue to guide, humanity through the long night of fear, toward the dawn of freedom, reason, and compassion, where the Stoic's shield not only guards the soul, but reflects the light of a humanity that remembers how to live with dignity and love. When reflected in today's world, Stoicism is no longer just a philosophical relic. It becomes a map for navigating the chaos of the information age. We live in a time when millions of opinions, fears, and outbursts of anger spread each day with a single touch. Humanity believes it has become more connected, yet in truth, we are more isolated than ever, trapped within our emotional reactions and digital illusions. It is precisely in this moment that Stoicism shines as a lamp for the mind, reminding us that not everything we see or hear deserves a place in our soul. Epictetus once said, "If you cannot control what enters your ears, at least control what stays in your mind." His words ring like an alarm in an era drowning in information. Choose what to keep, stay silent when needed, and make room only for what truly matters: wisdom, gratitude, and peace. The Stoic lives within the world, but is not ruled by it. They neither chase the crowd, nor rebel against it for its own sake. They simply stand firm. They understand how easily people are swept up by collective emotion, by fear, outrage, or excitement, and that only through clarity of mind can one avoid being pulled into the storm. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Do not let your soul be dyed with the colors of another." It was a call to intellectual independence, a quality now fading in an age obsessed with conformity. The Stoic is not afraid to stand alone, for they know truth requires no applause. A clear mind and an upright heart are all they need to keep walking, even if the road is lonely. Stoicism also teaches that truth is rarely comfortable, but it is always necessary. The Stoic does not turn away from reality, no matter how painful or harsh. They face it as a physician faces a wound, not to complain, but to heal. Seneca wrote, "No one is healthier than the one who can see his own sickness." In our era, when flaws are masked by filters, fame, or fortune, this lesson is more vital than ever. Only when we dare to confront our shadows, our envy, fear, pettiness, and weakness, can we begin the true journey of growth. The Stoic does not deny their darkness. They transform it into the fire that forges the soul. Like steel refined in flame, the spirit shines only after passing through its own night. Another profound gift of Stoicism is patience, a virtue almost extinct in an age of instant gratification. People today want everything now: fast success, fast money, fast happiness. But the Stoic knows that everything of real worth takes time. They believe in the process, not the outcome. In endurance, not eruption. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Time is a great teacher, but only to those who are patient enough to listen." Patience is not passivity. It is the strength that comes from understanding that flowers need time to bloom, that mistakes are part of learning, that the universe unfolds at its own rhythm. When we learn to wait without anxiety, life becomes gentler, and things arrive precisely when they are meant to. Not sooner, not later. And perhaps Stoicism's greatest value is the way it teaches us to find peace in a world that never stops changing. The outer world may crumble, yet the inner world can still stand. Peace, the Stoic knows, does not mean the absence of storms, but the ability to remain still within them. The Stoic does not pray for a life without hardship. They pray for a soul that cannot be broken by it. They do not seek happiness in power, but in the ability to remain themselves. They do not ask for life to be easier, but for themselves to be stronger. That is why Stoicism is not just the philosophy of philosophers. It is the philosophy of every human being learning to live, to love, to endure, and to rise again amid a world in constant motion. The journey of Stoic philosophy, through the words of Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, is not merely a story of the past, but a mirror reflecting the soul of humanity across all ages. It does not teach us to escape pain, but to live with it, with courage. It does not send us searching for happiness in distant places, but reveals that true joy lives in this very moment, in the breath we still take, in the love we still give, in the life we still touch. When the outer world trembles with chaos, the Stoic chooses stillness, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. They know that every storm eventually passes, and only the calm mind endures. They do not resist the current of life. They learn to move with it consciously, like a skillful sailor who does not fight the tide, but guides the oar gently, in harmony with the wind and the laws of nature. Stoicism is not the philosophy of the cold-hearted, but of those whose hearts have been broken and yet still know how to love. A Stoic can cry, but their tears never blind their reason. They can feel sorrow, but their sorrow becomes a seed of empathy, not despair. They understand that every human being is fragile, and that only by embracing this truth do we become strong. Stoicism does not turn us into emotionless beings. It teaches us to love more deeply. For when we understand that suffering is an inevitable part of life, we stop judging others, stop resenting fate, and begin to forgive. Forgiveness, not because others deserve it, but because we deserve peace. Hatred weighs down the heart. Compassion sets it free. And then, the philosophy leaves us with one eternal lesson. Everything passes, but how we live remains. Our bodies may vanish, our names may fade, but kindness, integrity, and serenity in the face of turmoil leave an imprint upon the soul of humanity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Live as if you were to die tomorrow, but love as if you were to live forever." That line captures the essence of Stoicism, not a philosophy that suppresses emotion, but one that reshapes it, not one that kills passion, but that directs it with purpose. When we live with the awareness that every day is a gift, every breath an opportunity to do what is right, happiness no longer needs to come from the outside. We become the very light we were seeking. In a world of constant change, Stoicism never promises to spare us from suffering. it offers us the shield to walk through it. When we are betrayed, it reminds us that trust is still beautiful. When we fail, it teaches that our worth is not in the outcome. When we lose, it whispers that love still remains. And when we fall, it reminds us that rising again is the soul's most natural act. Stoicism, after all, is not the philosophy of saints. It is the philosophy of humans, imperfect beings striving to live beautifully in their brief moment under the sun. It is the spirit of a humanity that has stumbled, suffered, and yet keeps reaching for the light. And so, the Stoic journey does not end with a period. It ends with a peaceful breath. For this philosophy does not live only in ancient texts, but in every person who smiles through a storm, who keeps kindness alive amid hatred, who chooses silence over noise and love over apathy. When humanity learns this, we do not merely become stronger, we become more human. And perhaps that is what Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all wish to say, that even in impermanence and ruin, we can still choose peace. For peace is not a gift from the universe. It is an art we create each day through every thought, every choice, and every heartbeat. That is the Stoic's immortal shield, the shield of reason, compassion, and hope.